Good afternoon. Good afternoon. So I hope the video from yesterday, the 90 minutes or 95 minutes video, in which I conduct an electrolysis experiment in order to create Neros in what I call the energetic pathway. I hope this video, you could people like around the world can actually watch it. Again, I would say this was a major topic in this channel from maybe February until July or August. And what you've seen yesterday, it was done pretty seamlessly without any problem. It was, at least it seems like that. We still need to check more results, but it looks good. But this is a product of many months of experimentation, and all of this experimentation were documented in this channel. And you are invited, to get access from Disney Plus, like the premium content, and to watch all these videos. So even if it might seem like simple construction, simple procedure, it's actually not simple at all. Because again, I would say it again and again, because people many people fail to understand it, no matter how many times they say it. So I'll say it again and again. These robots are sentient creatures, and a huge part of the science that involves the usage of these robots for lots of purposes is actually not physics or biology or chemistry, but linguistics or communication theory. It's a huge part of what I do, and this is also documented in this channel. This is actually documented. It was started to be documented before this channel was created, because it was done. At least a year before the channel was actually started. I've documented the linguistic issue in the Twitter account, in what I call the symbolic language of the Neros. Again, I should say that during the first year of the research into the symbolic language, I conceptualized my research as the study of communication between me and what I called at the time Neros, that are the starships that you see above you right now. This was the original term. When I say Nero, in my terminology, it means actually three different things. And one, let's leave it aside, but the two important meanings are, first, the starship that you see above you, and the second are the robots that are in my body. And actually, for something like a year, it was used to refer to the starships. My Twitter account is supposed to be public. I hope you can get access to it, and it's not blocked from the public. But there are many videos in the Twitter account, and you can watch me speak about the Neros, and I speak about the starships that you see above you right now. It might be confusing because to put it in a timeline. But so for about a year, I spoke about my efforts to communicate with the Neros, and I refer to the starships, those starships, and the ones that you can see above you. Above you during the night. And this was documented mostly in the Twitter account. And this had all sort of impact on my art, like these paintings that were created during this time, and other paintings. And once I was placed in arrest last December, like almost a year ago, I started this channel in YouTube, and I also started laboratory research using a simple microscope that I have. much of it was to keep me occupied. I mean, because I am under arrest, house arrest, and I'm still. This is still the situation. And so for the first time, I actually watched the robots in my body, even though I theorized that my body contains microbots long ago, many years ago. As a theory, it wasn't new, and I even spoke about it from time to time in the Twitter channel. But I mean, it wasn't a prominent kind of like in topic. I mostly spoke about my communication with the Starship Neros. But then I actually watched these robots under the microscope, and this channel was dedicated to the research efforts. And I discovered, not to my surprise, that there is a strong relation between the robots in my body and the Starship. It wasn't a big surprise, because much more of my thought in the last 4.5 years was already predicated on that. So it wasn't a huge surprise to me. I mean, if you know nothing about my life and my circumstances, this might seem like a huge discovery and completely complete surprise. But it wasn't like I'm already part of this discovery journey about my life in the last 4.5 years, and before that, I mean, there were several years of wandering, and before that there were like 30-something years of just living as a human in Earth. So I mean, it's not like I did not arrive from another planet right now. So taking all this into account, the discovery that there is a very strong relation between the robots in my body and the starships was not a huge surprise. And they also share the language. And then there was an issue of how to communicate with the robots, because I want them to do things not in my body. While they're in my body, they know what to do. But I mean, they can also walk outside my body, like you've seen yesterday. So there was an issue of how to communicate with them. It's not done telepathically. It's done visually, with all sorts of visual cues that you've seen yesterday. And most of the research is actually understanding this language or learning this language. And so in that on the timeline, I mean, this was the second year, approximately second year of the research of this symbolic language, and it was characterized by the fact that I actually was able to watch the entities that I communicate with, then using the microscope. And now, actually, I mean, in the last couple of days, it's like a third phase, because I can also watch the starships above. I mean, so, but of course, it wasn't possible in the last couple of days, and I wasn't sure that it will actually be possible at all. I wasn't clear about it because I didn't know that they will arrive. I mean, that they will show themselves. They don't have to. They don't have to show themselves to you. But they show themselves. I mean, at least to me. I mean, but I mean, when they show themselves to me, I mean, everybody else can also watch them. It's not it's not like a secret. I mean, you can treat it as a secret, but that's your own business. I mean, from their perspective, they show themselves. I mean, and they are huge. So, how do we continue now? So later today, I will take another microscopic examination of the mixture from the cup of the electrolysis from yesterday. I placed it in this plastic container. Actually, I mean, I spilled a little bit of it, but not much. And also I've added the canola oil from the bottle, because, as I've said many times, the Neros do not preserve well inside watery liquids. I mean, they much prefer oily liquids, or even crude oil, even hard oil is great to preserve them. But for the electrolysis purposes, you actually many times want conductivity, and this is done by decrease amount of oil in the liquid. So, and it's a huge issue of like how to do it. And of course, it's discussed in length in this channel. So we'll take a look at what you can watch now. As I've said many times yesterday in the videos, most of the objects that you see when you take sample from the electrolysis, while it's still, in place, once you see it, what I call DUDs, DUDs, which means non-explosive ammunition, or objects that are still in the way to materialize but are not materialized, and once you took them out, they will just after several hours or maybe a day, they will dissipate, they will disappear, and what will be left are only the actually living Neros. They are not living, they are not alive, so it's a question like, are the Neros alive? This is actually a philosophical question, and their answer would be no. They do not consider themselves living creatures. Even though I should say that their and also my definition of life is much wider than what you humans consider life, at least at that point, because you also change your definitions many times, and this is also discussed a lot in this channel and other channels. So the definition of life, according to myself and to the Neros, is tremendously larger than what you know and what you think of, but they do not consider themselves living creatures. So, I accept their definition. Fine. I will admit that, if I had known that, I could have suspected that they are living. Because I'm not sure about definitions as well. I'm baffled by all this new kind of information. But they do not consider themselves to be living creatures. They don't like to be defined as living creatures, so fine, they are not alive. But when I say that they are alive, I mean that they are prepared. That they are not that when they are taken out of the electrolysis chamber, they do not just dissipate or just deconstruct, but they keep being what they are, at least when placed in a proper container. So we will actually watch what's inside of it later today. And also, we should continue with 2 more experiments that I promise that I will conduct. So the second experiment will be the creation of life forms by the Neros. And this will be very interesting. Hopefully we will be able to create both biological, what you call biological life form, and synthetic life forms. So there is a question of what is the difference. So it's also a huge issue that was discussed a lot in this channel, and a philosophical issue, and a scientific issue. I would say that, according to my definition, what you call biological is a subset of what you call synthetic. Which means that it sounds non-intuitive, but it actually makes sense. Which means that there is that the phenomenon of life is very large, and you know only a little bit of it, what you know from Earth, or what you've known, what was known and was in part of public knowledge, not part of secret knowledge of intelligence agencies. So what you know from Earth is a subset of all life. So all life is synthetic life. Every life is synthetic. And a subset of that, a subgroup of it, is also biological. And this is what you know from Earth. And of course, this kind of definition is fluidic, by nature, because what you know changes. So now you know more. So as the more you know, the definition will. So life forms will change, the change the categorization, because, but I mean, that's the way it is. I mean, every definition of life that you have in your possession is very subjective and relates to the current knowledge of that you have regarding the universe, and not to some kind of, and not to some kind of like an intrinsic qualities that can be defined without, like, I mean, without an observer. I mean, or in other words, your definitions of life depends on the observer and not only on the things that are being observed. But in simple terms, we will try to create both life forms that you know from Earth and life forms that you don't know from Earth. It might be difficult to actually, like, I mean, do it in like a seamless way, like what we've done yesterday, and we might not be able to prove actually that what we have created is synthetic life. Of course, the best way to prove it is just, I mean, to create a huge one, because if it's huge, so you don't know this kind of thing from Earth, then by the definition that we've just, I mean, stated, it's synthetic. You might say it's not synthetic, it's a mutant. So there is also a question of like what exactly is a mutant, and I should say that the Neros, the robots, are expert on DNA manipulation. The issue of mutants is not strange at all to the Neros, and this is also discussed in this channel, even not much. I still have a lot to say on the matter. This is actually one of the subjects that, I mean, should still be discussed, and the issue of mutants. Because mutants, yes, they definitely, I mean, create mutants, and they it's definitely, I mean, a huge part of their profession, like the issue of mutants. But it's kind of like, I mean, from philosophical perspective, it's going to be difficult right now, like, I mean, to articulate the boundaries between mutants, biological life forms, and synthetic life forms. And again, from the Neros perspective, it's all the same. All of these categories depends on the observer that has limited amount of information. From their perspective, being expert on the field of life, it's all part of the same category of life. Mutants, biological, synthetical, it's part of the same category. So we will try to do it today. And the third experiment will be using the Neros to kill life forms. And that's what they do by default when they are inside bodies, like my own body or the bodies of people, of titans or of Homo sapiens that ate these Neros. That they know what kind of container they are inside of. Like, I mean, they know so they know what to do. But when they are outside the body, there is a question of how do they treat life forms, and this was also this was the second major question, major topic in this channel that was discussed in hundreds of videos. Like, how do these robots treat life forms when they are outside the human body? In all sorts of like ecologies, I mean, artificial ecologies, like in containers. And the answer is much more complicated than I initially thought it will be. The answer is a complete new science. There is no TLDR of it, because it's like it's actually, I didn't know that it will be like that. I thought maybe the answer is simple, but no. The answer to this question is a whole new science, unknown to humans. A new science, like the science of the ecologies that of the Neros and life forms, because it's anything but simple. You cannot like summarize it. It's like trying to summarize biology or archaeology. It's just a new science. It's tremendously complicated. Yeah, there is no short answer to that. I mean, it's not like initially I thought maybe, I mean, they're kind of like, I mean, their inclination is to kill all life form, like, kill all humans, like robots from like science fiction movies, like kill all humans, but not at all. It's it's much more complicated than that. And it relates to their own agenda, because they have agendas. They are sentient creatures, and their own projects. And so it's like a science by itself. Like, what do they do? How do they treat life forms when they are outside bodies of humans or humanoid creatures? But there is also the symbolic language, so they also comply with to some extent they comply with what I want them to do if I use the symbolic language. So I can tell them, kill, while you are inside a specific container, kill all life forms. And that's what I will demonstrate, hopefully demonstrate in the third experiment. How I use the Neros to clean a container with many life forms, clean it from the life forms. Now it should be said that electrolysis by itself kill life forms. But hopefully I will be able to prove in as much as possible rigorous way that it's not just the electrolysis that was part of the experiment that killed the life forms, but the Neros killed the life forms. In short, I would say that from experiment, in order to purify a container from life forms, you need relatively strong, relative to what you have in the home, in simple home environment, relatively strong DC transformers. I mean, I would suggest that you would want to have something like 100 volt DC transformer, which is something that is difficult to find actually. The strongest that I have had here was 40 volts and it's broken. And now the strongest that I have is 5 volts and it's very, very weak. It's very weak. And it's not enough in order to purify any kind of container. I mean, unless it's like a tiny one, but any kind of container, I mean, that can actually be dealt with, like a glass, even a simple glass. The 5 volt DC transformers that you've seen yesterday is not strong enough in order to purify, I mean, the mixture from life forms. Certainly, if we speak about synthetic life forms that are much more resistant to electricity than biological life forms, even though, as it was demonstrated in this channel, their resistance to electricity is also limited. I mean, at some point they are also crushed by just by electrolysis itself, without the Neros killing them. And this was demonstrated in this channel. So high voltage electrolysis was proven to be a valid way to purify mixtures from both biological life forms and synthetic life forms. But what we will try to prove is that even using low voltage electrolysis, we can purify or at least reduce the number of life forms inside a mixture by communicating with the robots, the Neros, and asking them to kill the life forms inside the container. So this will be the third experiment. So that's it for now.